Well, thank you very much for attending this press conference. I've been told that it's a slow news week and that there are very few issues that are generating a lot of exciting public interest. And I think this is largely reflective of our dreary existence, where things seem to be just drifting. However, one issue has been prominently reflected in the media. That is the issue of the CGIA, the Cheddi Jagan International Airport. And I see that there has been a few letters or posts by the minister responsible, and then some responses from Robeson Ben, the former minister. So what I find very strange is that the Minister of Public Infrastructure has returned to the old rhetoric, the pre-2015 rhetoric of blaming the People's Progressive Party for the terrible condition that the project currently finds itself in. You would recall that this project has become their pride and joy, where the entire cabinet was taken on a bus trip several times to view the airport and all the progress made at the airport. And the minister himself has talked up the project about how great it is for Guyana, etc. But I guess now that the calls have become more strident for a full-fledged investigation as to what took place since the coalition government took office at the airport, the minister has gone back to the familiar territory, which is blame the PPP for everything. So in his post, which subsequently got reflected in the newspapers, he said when he took office that 7% of the contract work was done and that 35% of the money expended, and they had $44 million of claim. And that 18 months the contractor had worked unsupervised, all with the view of creating the impression that somehow some of the shoddy work that we have witnessed at the airport and the change in the project should be attributed, the blame should be attributed to the People's Progressive Party. So if 7% of the contractor's work was done, or the contract work was done, it didn't matter if it were 18 months of the work was unsupervised, because that was basic work. 93% of the contract work, that is the construction of the airport, the runway, the terminal, the aprons, etc., would have been done by this government. So it is the supervision of the project under the current government that matters, because only 7%, that is the initial work, was done. He said 35% of the money was expended, but that's not wholly true. As Robeson Ben pointed out, that they had an advance on the project, which is normal, covered by a bond, which is a mobilization advance that most contracts have. And then he claimed that there was a large claim by the contractor outstanding. And that is true, but we argued at that time that we are not going to honor any claim for escalation, because this was a fixed price contract, a design build contract, and that the contractor took all the risk when they made that proposal. So they did the geotechnical survey for the runway, everything else, and they submitted a price. And therefore, you cannot come later on a fixed price contract and claim escalation. So all of this was accurate. It's true. But it's what happened subsequently that mattered. How did a contract for an entirely new runway of a defined length with a large apron to accommodate 8 aircraft standing at any moment with air bridges attached to a terminal, a new, entirely new terminal, become a rehabilitation project? When was that decision made? It had to be made by this government. And the supervision of 93% of the work, by his own admission, took place under his watch. So any design flaw, any shoddy work, or the redesign of the contract would have had to take place under his watch. And so I saw that he welcomed the investigation belatedly. And I'm very pleased that the Auditor General said that there'd be a full value for money audit conducted on the airport. So what intrigued me a bit is what the minister said when he welcomed the investigation. And I'm sure this welcome is not really a welcome, because you're going to find massive discrepancies, and I dare say corruption at the airport. So the minister said, and I quote directly from him, "Gone are the days when the cry for an investigation sent shivers down the backs of public officials." So I'm wondering if this is really true. If this is true, then this minister just doesn't care. A project of this nature will be investigated, and I'm sure that the findings will be adverse, but he welcomes it. I don't care. It doesn't create shivers anymore. I'm not fearful. This is impunity. You know, I'll do what I want. But I wonder if he was shivering when the Public Procurement Commission found that the Demerara Harbor Bridge project that he was personally involved in was a corrupt project done contrary to the procurement laws of Guyana. I wonder if he is shivering now. And I'm wondering if what is happening with that project, because you know on the 16th of August 2018, through Gail Teixeira, we filed a report with the police after the Public Procurement Commission, a constitutional body, ruled that this, in their investigation, that this project was corruptly done. That the minister took an unsolicited bid to the cabinet, got the cabinet to approve it, contrary to the procurement laws of our country, and then awarded this contract using funds from the Demerara Harbor Bridge that even the board of directors didn't know of. And once that report was filed with the police on September 18, 2018 said the probe had started. January 2019, they said they completed the probe and the file is with the police legal consultant, advisor. So from January to now, on a project that is totally corrupt, where the probe was completed, we haven't seen any single a charge laid against the minister. He should have been charged by now and before the courts for corruption. for corruption. The same minister who welcomes the probe and doesn't shiver when there are probes taking place. We're also calling for, in the same minister's portfolio or ministry, we have been asking repeatedly, why is it that one of the largest corporations in Ghana, with a revenue base of over $100 billion, 100 million US per year, not have a functioning board of directors for over a year? Why would this not happen? Is this not a priority? And we have gotten no answers from the government except that they are happy with the state of affairs at GPL because it allows the minister to make operational decisions and it allows interference because there is no functioning board. So the management will have to seek guidance from the ministry. And we have seen two large projects, both funded by the IDB, one for the smart meters, where a bid was awarded at over $5 million US above the engineer's estimate, and another one for the power utility upgrade program called the Power Utility Upgrade Program. You had another bid to another Chinese company awarded to that company also in excess of $5 million US over the price of the local bidder who have had serious experience in this matter, Cummins Electrical, for maintenance work that he has done in the past. And so those two projects alone, that's over $10 million US above the engineer's estimate and the next lowest bids. So that would warrant full-fledged investigation too, and I wonder if the minister will shiver when those come. And the next one is, you've seen it already, the 120, it's widely reported in the media, the 120 million US Ghana dollars project in Berbice, where the minister explained in Parliament that he had, through selective tendering, given out these contracts for the cleaning of parapets. And through the selective tendering, 6 of the 8 members who won the bids, and won in inverted commas, were all executive members of the AFC. This is a huge coincidence that you have 8 persons awarded a contract for cleaning, over $100 million worth of contract for cleaning parapet, and 8 of them, or 6 of the 8 members, are all members of the executive of the AFC. And I recently saw in the factional fight within the AFC in Berbice, many of those names reappear in the factional fight. So I wonder if there is a full-fledged investigation of that matter, whether the minister would also be shivering there. And then I wonder if the DPP had allowed the private criminal charges for the Durban Park to go ahead, then where the Ministry of Public Works, where that minister was the subject of a private criminal charge for expending over $600 million of taxpayers' money for a project that didn't have vouchers. And this money was paid to a private company that they had established. And that also, I wonder if that investigation will make the minister shiver. Or the asphalt plant and what's going on there. the kickbacks there. I noticed the minister went to Germany to examine the asphalt plant himself. I'm not sure he has expertise in this, but he went to Germany to look at the asphalt plant. And I'm wondering if on the East Bank, Berbice Road, that where they're doing that through force account, whether when the investigation is done of that or the other road contracts in the interior, whether the minister will start shivering about those. So Mr. Patterson has a lot to answer for. And a few Facebook posts will not help. I noticed the minister has now, somebody gave me this morning, something he posted on his Facebook page about a rumor, and this is what we get from a minister, that a rumor by one of his staff who said to him that the PPP is paying for $7,000 for somebody on the West Coast to go and protest at the outreach, what they call the outreach. Now this is a rumor. If we're going to start elevating rumors to Facebook posts by public officials, I could easily tell you what some of my staff been telling me, that the minister was drinking at a place and he forgot $20 million in a bag. That was a rumor too, and he left the place. And that's a rumor I've heard. Now, if we're gonna go down that route, let's go down it fully, because this morning that is what he posted, and the staff just showed me. A minister said rumors about PPP paying people to go and protest on West Coast. Well, he wants to go down the rumor route, we can go down that way, but we don't want to start that. We're dealing with factual issues. All the things I've outlined to you are factual issues. So we will come back. We want a full-fledged investigation of the airport project, started with that, and we'd like to get investigations into all of these. And I hope that the minister would welcome without shivering investigation into all of these projects. I'm investigating now another potential conflict of interest with this very same minister. Now, there are a lot of issues, as I said before, that we have seen in the past few weeks. And when I started off my press conference, I said that it seems slow now in the country. Everything is slow. I went into Sophia over the weekend, and that is what people said to me on the ground. I went to Cummins Lodge, different places. Everything is slow. It seems as though we're in an autopilot, and the country is grinding to a halt, and people are just, they don't see clarity at the end of the tunnel. They don't see hope, because this government doesn't inspire this. So what, instead of us getting a clear picture of direction, where we're going in, the direction in which the country will be going, and how our lives will improve in this country, we're getting a lot of platitudes again. So Nagamutu wants to speed up constitutional reform now. Imagine he's been responsible for this sector 4 years after, facing a no confidence motion now, where the matter is before the CCJ. He now wants to speed up constitutional reform, and it must take place before 2020. So rather than addressing some issue that is of concern to people. Trotman has fallen in love with the diaspora again. I said that last week. He's falling in love with the diaspora again. He wants dual citizenship to be the Constitution amended. Simona Brooms and other government officials now are at every wake, every funeral, meeting with DJs, etc., all around the country, yet they wouldn't spend a moment on addressing the concerns of the miners for better roads or the conditions under which they have to work in. Because a lot of miners come here, small miners, who are very, very upset now about the land allocation system there and the role the minister plays in that. We see Patterson again at outreaches and on a daily basis the blackouts. And it's going to get worse. We've predicted that it's going to get worse in the country because they have made no major investments. The money is being frittered away through these corrupt contracts in this. Ramjatan is busy fighting to be prime minister, and crime is raging across the country, demoralizing the police. Dominic Gaskin is, as usual, doing very little, but he doesn't even know that the CGIA increased the fees. He said now he's belatedly found out, and the matter now is going to address the attention of cabinet. How do you allow an agency of that nature to raise the fees by such an enormous sum? And the cabinet doesn't know about it, and you have to bring this to the attention of the minister, media person, to say, okay, we'll address it, we'll discuss it at the cabinet. What sort of government are we, do we have in this country that doesn't have even a clue what's going on anywhere? This is what we have. In the meantime, tons of wastage, as I said before, the outreaches costing millions of dollars. It is for corrupt practices, all the procurement, the food catering, the tent catering, everything is, right? When you see these big things happening out there, although very few people go to them, they're huge sums of money, taxpayers' money. The Easter weekend, we saw again some of that. The dietary, the rentals, the vehicles, whilst cost of living is escalating. I was in Berbice, people said to me, the bills are unbelievable now. I saw GWI saying, oh, water can be bad, the water quality and the problems in Berbice can be bad, because we're at an outreach and the people didn't come there and complain about it. So because they didn't go to the outreach, this waste of time thing that they have, then it means that the issue is not a big problem. The quality of the water, but more so it's the escalating cost, not just because of VAT, because they've increased the rates. The bills, cost of living is skyrocketing for many sectors, and people especially at the bottom. The jobs, we're hemorrhaging jobs every day. Instead of adding jobs, we're hemorrhaging jobs. The few job fairs that they have with 200 people or 300 persons getting a job cannot deal with the thousands who are losing jobs because of the shrinkages of private sector investment. So the few more that you hire through a couple of government agencies cannot offset that. There's no program, no plan for job creation, just as there is no plan now for housing young people and for giving house lots to anyone. There's no plan for it, absolutely no plan. The only plan in the housing sector is to repossess and then redistribute what the PPP did. There's no coherent plan to address healthcare. Healthcare is also deteriorating rapidly. It's abominable what's happening in the health sector. purely abominable in the health sector. The healthcare professionals will tell you what's going on there. The situation is appalling in many hospitals. People go there, they can't get help. But the ministers are busy campaigning, going on outreaches and to wakes and stuff like that. So this is it, pure drift. And I said before, the petty crime. Now the police they're totally demoralized. If you talk to a policeman, a regular policeman, you will hear this from the police. I think a significant part of the police resent all of this kind of instruction or the orientation where they have to now focus on providing security for ministers, the president travels around, large entourages, etc. That's not the best use of the police force. Even the people who are sent to harass us, they do so, they're uncomfortable. You see that, the policemen at the bottom. They're very, very uncomfortable with this sort of role. Our policemen should be out there fighting crime, not providing security for government officials or the prime minister, the president, tons of security, or harassing your opponents. They should be out there fighting crime. And then when you see the type of crimes that we have had now, I went to an area on the East Coast, and people said to me, we've had about 15 robberies here. And I asked them, are you reporting these? What the police say? They said, we don't report it. It's small things now. Small robberies. You know, people just going in, stealing things in people's yards and stuff like that. And a lot of it, like you meet other people and they say, we have family to feed. They almost justify it, that they have to steal basic things. There are now people who are killing the people in their homes and stuff. I'm talking about petty crime. That is seen an escalation to. Bad crime, heinous crimes and stuff like that, that has its own dynamics. But I'm talking about crime at the bottom. And it reflects the drift at the bottom. Groups of people hanging around, having nothing to do. They've lost jobs. Not increase, or we didn't even stand still. We didn't stand still for the last 4 years. We just lost jobs. And so you have more people who are working who don't have a job now. So that is a huge problem that we have. And so if we don't, we probably get the blackout here in a minute. Yeah, as I suspected. So you want to switch your cameras whilst I drink, switch on to battery or whatever you have. We don't have a generator here. Yeah, generator. Okay. So yeah, you're okay there. That's just what I was saying. So we are losing welfare on a daily basis. And we did some surveys, and people, the excitement that the country should be sharing now about the prospect of us being an oil producer is not shared by many people on the ground because of what they have seen and the hopelessness of this government in addressing the critical issues necessary to make that wealth work for Guyana. They're very concerned about that, and our experience with the first $18 million that they tried to steal did not help with that. So there's a great air of despondency across the country. I'm going to just deal with one issue. before I end here today. I'm not going to go for very long because, as I said before, I'm just getting tired at every week dealing with all these scandals, etc. So when I left last week, I had a conversation with some reporters outside. And some were saying, oh, you're getting to be a bit more hostile now as we get closer to the elections. That in the last 3.5 years, the PPP was not so hostile. And it came from a few people. I'm not going to identify who they are. And I said to them, it's not hostility. It is as though some people come here only with one purpose. That is to get you to say something that they want you to say, and then create a headline. And if your narrative is different, then they have an issue with that. And maybe some of what you're seeing from us is a reflection of a frustration that there is so much out there that the media traditionally would have gone after, where they give a free pass for the government, or this government on. And so one of the persons said to me, we can't spread the rumors that the PPP talks about. So we can't go after all these issues. And I said, hold on a minute. I'm not talking about rumors. I'm talking about investigations. And he said to me, can you give me a couple of examples? And I said, one, the Public Procurement Commission did an investigation. This is not the People's Progressive Party saying this. They found that a contract for the award of $605 million in the health sector was illegally done. So the PPC said the minister had no role in this. One of the members, the person who gave evidence, said the minister had a role. But forget the minister, the role of the minister now. If it was illegal and it was not the minister, someone else participated in the illegal contract. So how have we sought to get these matters addressed by the courts? We failed because the DPP withdrew the matter. But what about the media? Aren't you interested in this illegal contract and who did it? Shouldn't there be an investigation? And this is not the People's Progressive Party saying this. This is the Public Procurement Commission, an independent body headed by Carol Corbyn, who said this. But a free pass. Just imagine in the period when the PPP was there, that would have been the headline for months and months and months. Secondly, the audit report on HDM lab. This is an audit report. This is not the PPP again saying this. They pointed out how the contract was issued, the non-supply of a lot of essential drugs, the late supply of some of the drugs. It was an adverse finding by the Auditor General, not the People's Progressive Party. Yet, we have not seen any investigation. And we know that this person who owns the company is connected to some ministers. Just imagine how that would have played out under the PPP. I also pointed out to the person that the audit report for Durban Park showed 600 million missing. Wouldn't the media want to find out and probe a bit more about this private company that was established and how they tendered for issues and how the state ended up footing the bill for a private company of over $600 million, in fact, maybe $900 million. I pointed out the one I just did to you about the AFC officials. Just imagine if the PPP had given out $100 million, $20 million of contract, and you find 6 of the 8 persons who got the contracts were members of the executive of the PPP. What would have been the outcry now in Guyana? I pointed out about the Demerara Harbor Bridge, another investigation by the PPC. It seems as though the media has forgotten that since January 1, the police completed the probe. And when every week when the media asks, when are you going to charge some of the PPP people? But what about Patterson? Well, it should be asking the police, when do you intend to charge? We are now in almost approaching May. You finished the probe since January. So what about GFC? What's happening at GFC? They said you're bankrupt. Now, the last time I was here, a reporter sought to blame the PPP for that because of some high street project that we've had. Since then, we left billions of dollars in their account. Well, what has happened? The tender board breaches. This is not just the staff at NPTAB. That's it. That's a tiny, tiny thing. The consistent breach of the tender procedures by ministries and ministers. So I said to the reporter, it is not that we are hostile or anything, but sometimes we express in the PPP some frustration about what seems like double standards. That you cannot, on one hand, we don't see the same energy behind these things that you would have done in other cases. And look at the Gaisuko issue. Imagine, I've been speaking about the bond for ages. Shouldn't somebody, the media, really go over to the minister and say, what's going on in Gaisuko? And if they don't get answer, they should really go after the SPU to say, what are you doing with $17 billion of our money that we have to pay back as taxpayers that we guaranteed? What have you done with this money? Imagine we in the opposition, we don't know. We're members of parliament and the leader of the opposition. I can't get answers. The country can't get answers, but then you get a free pass on it. Just imagine if the situation was the other way around. And then I've been mentioning about the scrap iron sales. So nobody pursues this with SPU. Did somebody get this done, this contract for $3 billion, or did they not get it? This is not your personal property. This is the property of the state. If they got it, who got it? What form of tendering? And this is what the minister said April 21st, 2019 in Guyana Times. Dominic Gaskin said his ministry doesn't know anything about this. It has nothing to do with our arrangement. What we normally do is we write to various government entities that sell scrap metal, and we advise them who the registered exporters and dealers are, and we ask them to sell to those persons. So there are two things wrong with this. One is the person who got this, a registered exporter or dealer. But but also equally important is that you can't bid for anything if you're not a registered exporter or dealer. The ministry then tells you who to buy it from. This is major. Imagine the government doesn't know what's going on in an arm of the state about a $3 billion project that could see the whole of Wales dismantled and taken out of the country. And then the Times article spoke also about the expression of interest that companies hailing from Canada and all of that to sell Gaisuko to. So we're wondering what's happening with this. One time we heard last year that Katiyus and Ramjatan went and to Enmore. They had an outreach to Enmore to meet some sugar workers. And they said PepsiCo was coming to Guyana to buy the sugar estates, etc. What happened since then? And did we get any bids? What was the valuation price of the asset? And these things of interest to the media too. So I said this today. I didn't raise all of these issues, but I said to that individual who had just left the press conference last week, who thought I was a bit too harsh, that it is this frustration that seems that this government gets a free pass on all of these issues. I've just explained to you, if an investigative reporter really wants to go after these issues, they can fill up the newspapers for months to come with all of the transgressions. But so there's absolutely no hostility to the press. We have made ourselves available for questioning, etc. And it is this sort of frustration too sometimes that really really irks us a bit. Thank you.
Kamal King, Kaiser News. Last week you said that Gail Teixeira and Adrian Anamaya resigned. Have you received the Moma's resignation?
Odinga has resigned.
Okay, and so has the PPP selected replacements?
We have not. If we win the case at the CCJ, and the prospects looks good, their prospects look good, and if we win the case there, then there will be no need for this, because Parliament will not reconvene. Okay. And if so, we are waiting on the ruling from the CCJ.
Mr. Jagdeo.
What are these prospects looking good?
Great prospects. I think we have solid arguments. I think 98% of Guyanese on both sides of the fence, APNU people as well as PPP people, and maybe the residual AFC people, believe that the mathematics used there, and that's the issue there, that ruling based on mathematics would never stand. And I think if the ruling stands, as you saw from some people around the Caribbean, I saw the latest to write about this was Mr. Miller, Earl Miller, it would have implications for everyone in the region, all the countries. And we have written to almost every country in the region to pay attention to this case, because many people try to solve this kind of issue by moving from even number legislatures to odd number legislatures. Because as the Chief Justice pointed out, in an odd number legislature, you have to have a majority. And not half people, full people, one full person. So the thing is that we're hopeful. We're very hopeful. Yeah, sure.
Yes. Sir, I saw some photos on the Facebook with you and some oil experts. Could you give us a feedback on what that meeting would have been about?
Okay.
And have you been keeping yourself familiar with what's going on in the oil industry, being the biggest thing for Ghana at this point?
Okay. This Charles Ramson, who studied in this area, arranged a meeting with us to meet some people who are practitioners, but mainly people who have been in academia in this area. And so I met with them, with Charles too, and we're hoping that we define the issues. So even before before we finalize our manifesto, we wanted to get some expertise, because we believe in listening to lots of people, get some people who are experts in this area, how major issues like local content have been addressed in different parts of the world, where it has worked, where it has not worked, and what brings the greatest benefit to Guyanese. That's our primary concern. And similarly, how you address issues like bidding for future contracts, auctioning of future blocks, because we want to move to a transparent system. Nobody should go to the minister directly to get this. We spoke about the regulatory issues, arm's length from the politician, even the sovereign wealth fund and its management being arm's length from the politician. So I define what is the current state of affairs, and then I indicated to them what our thinking was, and we'd welcome their thoughts on these matters. So it is part of our listening, talking to people, etc. There is no contract or anything that we have signed with them, or any commitment that we've made to them.
Okay, sir, on Friday, I know there's been an application to the CCJ as to not allow Friday sitting at the National Assembly. But suppose this application is not approved. One of the things that are to be addressed on Friday, is the tax concessions for all companies. I know the PBB said that it would not be there, but is this something that the party agrees with?
No, I do not think that any sitting of the parliament should address any of these major issues, especially before the CCJ rules definitively on these matters. However, we have not filed the application to stop the parliament. It's filed by Mr. Datadin, acting on behalf of his clients. Our position is we'll abide by the ruling of the court, whatever the court rules on that application. But in any case, we have signaled, and we will signal to the court, that we will not attend the sitting until the matter is definitively heard at the CCJ. I think I've seen that matter, and I've seen that they have now identified 4 persons to be sworn in. And as the researchers, and I've seen a lot of things sent to me, it seems as though it's a payoff again to individuals. For internal, I saw at least 2 of those individuals who were heavily involved in the internal issues in Berbice, dealing with the AFC. They have some huge internal problems now, fighting over the prime ministership. I'm sure you're more familiar with that than me. So it seems as though, and they come very tainted from all that I've seen. But hopefully we're not going to be creating, it's a fear I expressed earlier, that we're not going to be creating sinecure technical positions for these ministers. And it seems as though that's exactly the direction that the government is going in. And in fact, many of them cannot compete with many Guyanese for technical positions. So these sinecure positions would be filled, sinecure technical positions would be filled only on the basis of political affiliation, not a competitive process. And so we'll have to continue fetching these 4 ministers, and we have to fetch another 4 parliamentarians. That's taxpayers would have to do this.
Any updates on the PPP's prime ministerial candidate?
No, we're awaiting the ruling from the CCJ.
Sir Handel on Connecting News, you said prospects look good in terms of the CCJ case for the opposition.
You know, this is not the first time I've said this. I said this about 10 times before including the first day that we filed. This is not, it's not news today. I've said this. I have great faith in the CCJ.
The point exactly.
Okay,
The-
all right, because
the-
you
the
paused,
preamble.
you paused for, and looked at me. All right.
What I want to ask is that the list as it is expires on April 30. Given that the prospects, according to you, it looks good, things work out in your favor, how would the party treat with the fact that the list will expire come April 30 and the fact that GCOM is moving ahead with house registration? How will you treat with all of this?
Well, the courts have asked GCOM to join in the matter now. So I think the ruling of the court and its orders will be binding on GCOM too. And therefore, once those orders are made, then I think these issues could easily be resolved.
Sorry, you didn't talk about what's been going on at the UG. I wonder if you've been keeping up on the fact that the two unions have called for an audit because they have questions over the allocation of the funding. Have you been keeping yourself informed about
that? I read stuff. I've read what is going on here.
Okay. Separately, the UG Student Society, on tomorrow they're going to be doing a walkout. They're demanding that tuition be removed. Do you have a position on that?
It is something that their parties have to seriously consider. At least the PVP level, we've had this come up at our manifesto meeting. You know, the meeting we had on the East Bank, the conference center there, New Driving area. So we had invited 100 organizations, and there are some people who urge free university education. So I said to you that every one of those recommendations will go through the litmus test of impact on the country, access of our people to high quality education, and then the cost of it to the Treasury. So in light of future oil revenues, we'll have to assess that position. But so it will have a serious consideration at the level of the People's Progressive Party. What we are concerned about, we didn't think that they needed to raise the fees. We're opposed to that. And so, although it may look small now, but in a 3 years period, I think it has been raised about 35%. 35%. We're concerned about extravagance in government. So I hope those same UG students who are worried about extravagance at the university, that they just peep over to the government side and see that we're spending $1.6 billion more on dietary in government, and when we said we couldn't afford $1.6 billion for this children's grant, and we're spending $1 billion more per year on renting buildings for government, and about $800 million more on maintenance of vehicles, and over $1.1 billion on local travel, more than 2014. And so I hope that the sense of outrage that they display at the University of Ghana, that some of those same students who I hear different views on when it comes to the government, that they will display the same sense of outrage what's taking place at the national level that we've been fighting against for a while, and many of them have been silent on. So I expect that of them.
I want to take you back to the Jagan International Airport. The fees, can you explain to us, we're getting a new airport, how on the PPP would have we been paying back for the airport, apart from the fact that you've got to hike the fees there?
That is something that's why the cost of the financing was so critical, because with the Chinese, the cost of financing is so low. And a substantial part of this was our plans for the airport. So the plan was to use the airport as a mini hub to connect with northern Brazil through Roraima, Suriname, Barbados, and Trinidad, North America, and then Europe through the KLM flights or the others coming to Suriname. So coming across either to Suriname, to Guyana, and then going up back to Europe. That was one. So increased traffic. You can often do what you want by increasing the traffic. That's why the size of the airport mattered. Because if you increase traffic, you don't need to adjust fees because you operate now on volume. So that was one. Two, that we would have more freight because with the larger aircrafts coming in, it would have been a big boost to the non-traditional industries, perishables and stuff. So the cost of freight to North America and Europe would have gone down. And then you can ship more things there. So it was based on more airlines coming, more passengers coming, etc. It was mainly on volume growth than a vertical increase in the fees, especially by that magnitude. That's a huge fee. That is what we had planned.
Marcel, yes, on the same airport issue, do you believe that this fee is going to negatively impact tourism also? And my second question is, have you heard anything back from the police?
Oh, the second one, no, I've not heard anything from the police as yet. No. I thought you all would have had to bring food for me in the prisons. So, so that's one. And the second thing is that this is one of the few times I agree with Dominic Gaskin, that it could impact tourism. But my point is, how do you run a government and you don't know? One minister saying, and this a point I made earlier, I didn't know if you were here, Marcel. But I made a point earlier, how do you run a government and the minister responsible for tourism doesn't even know and doesn't agree with their increase in the airport fees? And he is a member of the cabinet, and he said other members of the cabinet didn't know too. They discovered it. This is what we have for a government. It's government by remote.
Mr. Jagdeo, are we getting an improved airport? We're getting a better airport than we had before. Is it that you're concerned with amount or a minimal increase would suffice, or none at all?
The thing is that, first of all, we have to get what we paid for at the airport. That's the first point. And we're not getting what we paid for, the type of airport. So I just pointed out to you the size of the airport mattered and the number of standing aircrafts. Already we have sometimes 4 aircrafts coming on the tarmac, being on the tarmac there. So with only 4 of those bridges to come in to the terminal, you're already at capacity. That's why we designed for 8 to grow. I believe that volume growth could have offset any repayment of the loan. But if they had to do, say, a minimal increase, they should have at least had the consultations with everyone. And the government should have known about it.
Mr. Jagdeo, a number of media houses have been sent letters and are being held before the GNDA over your speech at Babu John.
Sure.
Are you at all concerned about the impact it will have?
I have received from several media houses, and it seems as though some media houses are singled out. A series of letters that they have received from the GNBA. And frankly speaking, some of them border on the ridiculous. Ridiculous. I've seen open transgressions in the state media that probably warrant tough sanctions versus the things that they are written about, not just the speech at Babu Jan. And what was interesting about that speech is that it was broadcasted almost a month prior, and then 2 days prior to the police declaring the intent that they are looking for me, that's when we discovered, that is when that letter was written, almost as though it was coordinated. And so I've seen this, and I've seen also I've heard from people who've attended, who are told, stations are told, and I saw a letter or some position. In fact, I was briefed about this, that one person was told, can't you find anything positive about the government to say? This is infringing on the editorial policy of those media houses. And so people when they attend the meetings, it's more like an inquisition. And I doubt that the government agencies are receiving this. This Mr. Iqbal has been criticizing me all the time. And they have not received any transgression or anything like that. So my point is that they have not, I'm sure he has not received a single letter there.
So which are the media houses that send the letters to you?
Freedom Radio, MTV, etc. I'm not sure Kite Show get any.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, oh, yes. Did Scanner Standard get any?
No, we didn't.
Okay, you're not getting. So yes. Well, thank you very much.